Hey there, this is Justin Wilcox, and we are doing the follow-up to the Badass Customer Interviews Live. So we're doing a little Q&A session here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just walk through the group chat from yesterday, and I'm going to pull out any of the questions that we weren't able to answer and try to answer them to the best of my ability. A couple things are going to hinder that, though. It looks like our chat program was truncating messages that were over a certain length. So I may have to. It may take me a little while to get this right, to get the right data. So let's see here. For example, best way to. Okay, so here we go. I got a question here from Brandon that says, once the interview is over, what's the best way to follow up? So I'll talk about B2C and then B2B. In a B2C scenario, I'm typically going to end my interviews by offering a solution to the biggest problem that the customer has raised. So in our conversation last night, the customer said her biggest concern was providing coping skills for her child with ADHD. So what I might say is, hey, we're working on a program to help teenagers develop the skills necessary to be productive and fulfilled adults, even though they have ADHD. Is it okay if I contact you when we're ready to launch? So what I've done here is I'm explicitly saying I'm going to solve the biggest problem that she has said she has. And I'm doing that as opposed to talking about my product, because we don't pitch her product. So I'm talking about her problem. And by talking about solving her biggest problem, there's almost no way she's going to say, no, you can't contact me, because we're literally going to solve her biggest problem. Now, if it turns out that we decide to pivot and then go solve that problem, then we have free reign to go contact her. And even if we're doing something tangentially related, we might be able to follow up with her and say, hey, Rose, we're solving a problem that's this, and it's maybe related to what she originally said. But by offering a solution to her biggest problem, we've got an opportunity to follow up again when we're ready. In a B2B scenario, I'm going to do something similar, where I'm going to end the interview by saying, okay, this is really interesting, your problems that you have. If I'm not confident that I can actually solve any of the problems they've raised, then I'm just going to simply say, all right, I'm going to take this back, and my team and I are going to pore over it, and we're going to let you know when we have something that's worth putting in front of you. So here I'm just leaving it open-ended, and we're just leaving the meeting with sort of like, I'll be back, I'll come back to you. If there's something in there that I think is interesting, then I will use the same technique that I used with the B2C, and I will say, great talking with you. It looks like we're actually interested in solving this problem here. Is it okay if I come back to you when we have something that's worth taking a look at? And then they'll say yes. And then what that means, worth taking a look at, that can simply be I have a single statement, like here's our solution, is it worth talking about? So going into our solution interview. So you don't have to have a full product, even have a full PowerPoint deck, something to take a look at. It can just be an idea, a potential solution. So that's how I follow up with folks. I hope that answers your question, Brandon. If not, feel free to send me an email or set up a So Helpful. All right. So here we go. Looking for other questions. Please excuse the awkward silence. All right. What questions would you? Okay. So now we have some suggestions about what questions would you ask when. So Henrik has asked, hey, what questions would you ask this person while I was doing the interview? And Spike offers two suggestions. He says, is anybody helping you through this? And do you have a path forward? What's next for you and your kid? All right. So is anybody helping you through this? This is interesting. I think Spike's talking about trying to get what's this solution that someone is using. So maybe trying to ask for, are they actively trying to solve this problem? And then also, do you have a path forward? What's next for you? And that, again, it sounds like trying to probe for solutions. Is this a problem that's severe enough that this person is actively trying to solve this problem? I'm down with both of those questions. Okay. All right. Okay, Spike's got some more in here. Then Mike calls me out and says, "Hey, I thought you shouldn't talk about your idea." Mike's absolutely right. That was trying to sort of prove the point of why we don't ask about the solution I came to the conversation with. If you're going to talk about any solution, talk about solving a problem that your customer has brought up. Okay. Did it to get contact info, to flip into pitch mode. Okay, so surprised, Jeremy asks, hey, surprised to see some questions repeated. Why? So this is, I think what Jeremy's asking about is either the question why, specifically why was I asking that repeated, or why was I repeating the process. So there's a couple of reasons I will repeat myself. One, I will go through the entire interview loop from what's your biggest problem? Can you tell me an example of when you encountered that? Why is that a problem? What are you doing to try and solve that problem? And why has that solution not worked? Those 5 questions, I will repeat those again. Ideally, I'll do it 3 times if I have enough time. I think I only did it twice yesterday, but I would love to do it at least 3 times so I can hear about all the problems they're potentially looking to solve. I also might repeat questions if I don't get an answer that I want for one of the questions. And by answer that I want, I don't mean something that validates what I came into the conversation with. But in the very first question I asked Rose about her problems last time, she answered from a different perspective than I wanted. So I asked, what's the hardest part about having a child with ADHD? And she mentioned that her problems from her child's perspective, like that she can't sleep or she can't has problems going to bed at night. What I wanted to know was why is that a problem for Rose, the mom, and my customer? So I'll ask that question again, just so I can sort of hone in on that, on what specifically I'm looking for, which is her perspective. So hopefully that answers your question, Jeremy, about why you heard some repeated questions. And then Stacy talked about how much does it matter that she didn't mention the problem that you're trying to solve with your app. It matters infinitely. It's the most important thing. So if they don't mention a problem that's not related to my app, that means that they're probably not actively taking steps to solve it, which means this person is not in my early adopter segment. So what we're looking for during these interviews are people who are actively taking steps to try and solve the problem that we hypothesize that they have. So again, we're going to open up a wide net. What's the hardest part about having a child with ADHD? This is a real wide net. They can say almost anything. And then we're going to try and understand, are they solving any of the problems, trying to solve any of the problems that we're interested in solving? And if they are, then we've got a match. If they aren't, then something's got to change. Either I got to go to a different customer segment, or I have to go with a different problem that I want to solve. So in this case, I would, for moms like Rose, I would more likely switch to a different problem. And then, but if I wanted to really stick with my app that I wanted to build, I would go and find maybe a different customer segment that's more likely to be trying to solve that problem now. Okay. Digging on emotions. Okay, so Christian says, oh yeah, I think we answered this in the conversation. Did a lot of digging on emotions. Does that work with business interview peers as well? Yeah, it does. Understanding what's hardest about someone's job in terms of what's most frustrating for them, what's stopping them from getting a promotion. Even in the business context, everyone has concerns and frustrations. So definitely works to ask why things are a problem. Chiara asks, Justin, you're really good at listening and saying things back at her. Is this a natural skill, something you can learn? Great question and great observation. empathizing with someone is not a natural skill for me. I am a developer by passion, training, and wiring. I am not naturally inclined to listen and really even hear people. I'd much rather talk, as I'm doing right now. Um, but this is a skill I learned for two reasons. One, my girlfriend is a psychologist, and so a lot of the stuff that I do comes straight from her playbook, and it helps build rapport, create ease, and it's really this cool trick when you're doing an interview and you want someone to say more of something, like you want them to provide more detail, but you don't want to fill in the blanks for them. If you repeat back what they've said to them, they will sort of like pulling the string again, and they'll continue onward, and you don't have to worry about tipping the scales at all. So when she says, I really have concerns about making sure my kids have coping skills, the right coping skills, then you can reply back with, that makes a lot of sense. I hear what you're saying. Something positive and affirming. Don't lie. If it doesn't make sense, then ask. But yeah, I totally understand why that would be really important for you, for your child to have coping skills. And just sort of leave it there, and they'll often pick up the conversation again and keep going because once you've heard it back, like, oh, that might trigger something else. So no, it's not a natural skill. Yes, it is something that is learned. You can learn it too, and it turns out to be really simple. All you do is once someone finishes a sentence, you say something positive and affirming, and then repeat back what they said, and then kind of leave it open. And maybe you change your inflection just a little bit. So that sounds really interesting. I can understand why it's frustrating that she doesn't go to bed on time. And then hopefully they'll pick up and keep going. And even if they don't, you still created a rapport and you've used that language back at them, and you created a stronger connection. Great job, Shara. All right. Oh, okay. This is you can definitely practice to learn those skills. All right. Oops. Standard Chinese reading. I could talk to. Okay, so Spike is giving similar feedback. All right. Thomas asks, how much did that Mechanical Turk cost call? That was $2.02. I give a lot because I want people to call in. Normally I would charge 50 or pay 50 cents for that. Okay. There we go. Getting things. Okay. Out of curiosity, how much? Okay. How did you find Rose? Okay. Ivan's asking, how did you find Rose, and how did you approach her in order to get this interview? All right. So, Ivan, I've got a hack that enables me to get calls really quickly from Mechanical Turk, and I will publish a link to that blog post on how you can use that hack to do the exact same thing. So I'd never spoken to Rose before. She came out of the ether, and you can enable that to happen too. Okay, it looks like Allison has the same question. I will make sure that this goes out to everyone. Okay, Vamshi has the same question. All right. Then how do you follow up? Okay, so that one I already answered. Mechanical Turk, it was a random person. Good coping. Please repeat what you said about the 3 options with the customer segment. Ooh, please repeat what you said. Okay, I would love to. I can't remember what I said about the 3 options on customer segment. So I'm going to keep going. Feel free to email me. That was Brandon. Brandon, good questions. Okay. We'll test the image later, I believe. Okay. Okay. There are some things. Some specific things like. Okay. Talk about the issue. And. She sees it it, but a lot of people say they've tried every option. Okay, I think that's a takeaway. Okay, so those were questions about the interview. I'm going to jump into questions about, this is about my interview. I'm going to try and jump for questions around um, the when we had everyone interview each other. So that's what's going to come up next. All right. Okay. Sheet here. Fail. Is there something here? I haven't started yet. There's for anyone else. Okay. So, okay, here we go. How do we keeping the conversation succinct? Okay, so Candace has a great question. We answered it during the call. So if I can't find someone else's question, I'll come back and answer it again. But it was how do we keep the yeah, I remember this one. This was so cool. How do you cast a wide net without A, turn the conversation into a therapy session, and B, keep the conversation succinct? Yes. Oh, I love this question. So good. I think I even replied in the chat that we want therapy sessions. This is exactly what we want. Now we're not looking to solve someone's problem while we're on the call, but if we can get the same level of detail about people's problems and the emotional attributes of solving those problems, we're golden. So if you got any recipe to turn into a therapy session, do so. And this is your opportunity to understand the problems they have, what they're trying to do to solve them, why there are problems, all that good stuff. As far as keeping the conversation succinct, I think you don't want to keep the conversation succinct. I think, to the best of your ability, you want this person to talk as much as they can. Because every word they use is a word that you might be able to reuse in your marketing copy, and it's going to give you a better understanding of their perspective of the problem. So I definitely think you should be thinking of these conversations as gifts, and that the more information you get, the better. And as long as they're willing to talk, keep the conversation going. Quick note on that: people are often really willing to talk about their problems for two reasons. One, because they're talking about themselves, and we all really enjoy talking about ourselves. And number two, no one ever asks about our problems. So just triggering that part of the brain and says, oh, hey, what are my problems? And then having someone else ask about them and be genuinely interesting, people are going to be willing to talk for a surprisingly long time. Rose, we could have easily gone for another 10 minutes, and it would have been no problem. And if you ever get interviewed, have someone ask you about your problems, you'll notice that it's no problem at all to talk for a long time. So definitely look to be going longer. Ideally, you're talking for a half an hour to an hour with each person. Okay. So now, and then we talked about casting a wide net and the benefits of doing that versus focusing on a specific area. So I'll leave that for now. All right. Okay. Brendan asked, do you write any stuff down during the interview? How do you record the responses? Typically, I will. Typically, I'll be feverishly typing, and I wasn't doing that this time because I wanted you guys to be doing your own note-taking, and that you guys could be my note-takers. So yes, I am writing it all down. Some people record the interviews and then write them down later. That's totally an awesome way to go. I don't end up listening to those recordings, so I don't do it, so I just stopped recording it. Another great tool, if you're working with a co-founder, a partner, and doing interviews together, have one person ask the question and one person do the note-taking. That's a great way so that you're both hearing the words. If for some reason you can't do it together, but you have a co-founder who you want to be in on the interview, record the interview, just you and the interviewee, and then send the recording to your partner and have your partner type up the notes. That will give them the opportunity to hear the same words, because it's best if the words and the thoughts are coming from the customer and not being interpreted through our own heads and get spit out to someone else. That turns into a game of telephone. So yeah, definitely try those things out. Okay. Can I see? Do you want to therapy? being broad. My interview approach. Okay, great. Great takeaways in here. How difficult it is to ask the right questions. It takes practice to become good at interviewing. Interviewing is a skill. Right on, Nick. That's totally true. It does take practice. Use the Mechanical Turk hack to get your practice. Even if it's not your customer segment, get used to interviewing people, and it will become second nature. Take away. What's the hardest thing? Oh, okay. So these are people's questions for their own scripts. Question. Oh, okay. Brandon's asking the same question. I'm wondering, like, why are you still asking the same questions? Because I hadn't answered it. The best way to follow up after the interview. I will say, if there's no other questions, okay. So last question I'll answer. What do we do with their answers after we finish the interview? So once I'm done with my interviews, I'll typically take 5 to 8 of them, and I will highlight the key portions of the interview, the key nuggets. So interesting phrases they used, emotions they mentioned, problems they're trying to solve, solutions. I will highlight them all in Evernote. And then I will take those highlighted sections and I will put them on Post-it notes. And it's a different color for each person, each interview. And then I start making a Post-it cloud and I start grouping up similar concepts together. That helps me visualize the actual problems that people are having and see it and sort of make it more clear. It'll naturally come to you as you're doing the interviews. The common themes will come out. If they don't, if you're getting problems from all over the place and they don't make any sense, it means you're probably interviewing customers across too broad of a segment and you need to focus your energy on one customer segment. So once you've focused narrowly, you'll start to see the same patterns again. The Post-it notes can help make those visual pop out to you. All right, thank you so much for your incredible questions and your participation yesterday. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Also, if you are interested in working on these skills and applying them to your startup, please check out Customer Acquisition Teams. They were built for founders who are doing exactly that. You can find more information on the links below or at cat.customerdevlabs.com. All right, I look forward to seeing you later and working with you again, and have a great day.